Welcome to the Urban Herald Deep Dive.
Nah.
We've been tracking, well, pretty much everything Hawkins, Indiana for years now, haven't we? Every clue, every interview, every wild fan theory.
We certainly have, and now it feels like the real countdown is finally on.
Yeah, that 3-year wait.
It's been a lot of theorizing, a lot of anticipation, and maybe, a little bit of nervousness about how this huge story, these kids' stories, actually wrap up.
Exactly. And digging into this comprehensive guide to Stranger Things 5 really stands out as just how high the stakes have gotten. This isn't just like a localized monster issue anymore.
Not at all.
Hawkins is literally ripped open. There's this massive apocalyptic rift. Vecna, yeah, he's hurt, we know that, but he's vanished. He's out there somewhere. And everyone seems braced for what the sources are calling the final definitive battle.
Right, and that's why we, here at the Urban Herald Analysis team, wanted to do this deep dive. Our mission really is to give you that essential, in-depth perspective you need to navigate this whole final season.
We're aiming to cut through all the online noise, give you a clear, structured look at what's happened in that 3-year gap, what the main narrative priorities are, and believe me, we really need to talk about Will Byers taking center stage again.
Oh, absolutely.
And also this totally new release format they're doing, plus the big underlying mythology questions about the Upside Down that Season 5 just has to answer.
Yeah, this analysis feels crucial because, what the Duffer Brothers are putting together here, it's not just another season of TV. It really feels like a meticulously planned, almost global cultural event.
That's a good way to put it.
So today, we'll start by unpacking that really interesting release strategy. Then we'll revisit those massive Season 4 cliffhangers, look at the new character dynamics coming in, and finally, tackle the deep, complex lore, the Upside Down itself.
Okay, let's jump straight into that release schedule then, because you're right. It's the first big signal that Netflix and the Duffers see this as something, well, bigger than just dropping episodes online. This is how you frame the end of an era.
You nailed it. They're consciously breaking that standard binge model. It's being framed, and our sources call it this too, an extended cultural event. And it's strategically timed to basically dominate the entire holiday season, right? Late November, all the way through New Year's 2027.
It really is. And it kicks off with Volume 1 dropping November 26, 2025, which is, perfectly positioned for the Thanksgiving weekend in the U.S.
Right.
And that's not just some random date they picked. It feels very calculated. It leverages those family gatherings, the long weekends, people actually having the time to sit down for some serious, multi-hour viewing.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like they're going to need it.
Oh, they absolutely will. The guide confirms what the Duffers have been promising, that basically every single episode in this final season works like a standalone movie, not just a TV episode.
Wow.
So yeah, you need that viewing window. We even have runtimes for 3 of the first 4 episodes in Volume 1. The Crawl is 68 minutes. The Turbo Trap is 66. And then Sorcerer is a whopping 83 minutes long.
83 minutes. That's almost feature length right there for one episode. So if the others are anywhere near that, those first 4 episodes alone could be, close to 5 hours?
Easily. Yeah.
Okay, so that Thanksgiving timing makes perfect sense that you can't just, squeeze these in after work. You need a dedicated block of time to actually watch and probably recover emotionally from 4 mini-movies back-to-back.
Right. But the strategy seems designed to keep that buzz going, keep the conversation alive, because Volume 2 doesn't arrive until December 25th, Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, wow.
Yeah, right on the holiday, which puts the last 3 feature-length episodes right into that global Christmas viewing period. It basically guarantees Stranger Things will be the thing everyone's talking about around the dinner table.
That's fascinating, though. The split release.
Yeah.
Critically, you have to look at the commercial side, too, right?
Yeah.
Volumes 1 and 2, they create this deliberate month-long gap. So fan theories are just going to explode. Social media will be on fire for those 4 weeks. It definitely builds anticipation, stops the whole thing burning out in one weekend binge.
Is it genuine community building or maybe maximizing subscription time? Probably a bit of both, honestly.
Yeah, could be.
But either way, it definitely builds towards the big crescendo, which is that historic finale on December 31st, and the title alone, The Right Side Up. It's pretty provocative, right? Setting it up as the direct opposite of the Upside Down horror.
And this is where it gets really groundbreaking for Netflix. This episode, The Right Side Up, is confirmed as their first ever simultaneous streaming and major theatrical release.
Yeah, that's huge.
It hits over 350 theaters in North America on New Year's Eve, and the screenings actually run through January 1st, 2026.
And Ross Duffer mentioned this wasn't a last-minute idea. He said the theatrical part was planned for almost a year. They really stressed wanting fans to see the finale on the big screen with exceptional sound and visuals alongside a room filled with fans. It's about moving beyond just watching it alone on your couch.
I have to say, that intention, setting aside the potential revenue, it genuinely reinforces what the show's always been about. Community.
Totally.
From the very beginning, the kids in the basement playing D&D, using that shared fantasy to cope, to the town coming together.
Yeah.
It feels like the ending almost needs that collective experience. It turns a private streaming moment into something physical, shared. That's pretty brilliant synergy with the story itself.
It really is. It's like the ultimate expression of that communal viewing idea, turning the final goodbye into this big shared event where you're feeling all those emotions with hundreds of other fans in real time.
Okay, so now we know when we're watching. We really need to lock down where things stand when season 5 picks up. Because that year-plus time jump between seasons is a huge factor. It completely changes the psychological state of Hawkins.
Right, so season 5 officially kicks off in the fall of 1987. And that's a deliberate jump, like you said, over a year after the end of season 4. And the why seems pretty clear. That time lets the immediate shock wear off, right? And what's left behind is this deeper sort of settled trauma and this forced adjustment to a horrifying new normal in Hawkins.
Yeah, a year is long enough for that initial sense of maybe victory to curl into something else. I mean, our heroes thought they'd done it. Nancy, Steve, Robin hitting Vecna's body in the Upside Down, 11 fighting him on the psychic plane.
It looked like it worked for a second.
Exactly. It seemed like that coordinated attack worked, but the source material's crystal clear. They just, delayed him for a bit. Vecna definitely survived, and he's vanished. Which means he could have spent that whole year recovering, planning his final move.
And the absolute confirmation of his survival comes from, maybe unexpectedly, Will Byers. That psychic link he has, which the guide calls his supernatural radar, it gives him this undeniable certainty. It's like an emotional, physical tracker.
Yeah.
And his line is just bone-chilling. He's hurt, he's hurting, but he's still alive. He's not going to stop, ever. Not until he's taken everything.
That quote, it's not just dialogue, is it? It feels like the whole mission statement for Season 5. This connection between Will and Vecna, it's not just leftover static from 83. Our analysis confirms it's the literal foundation for the entire final season's narrative. Will feels Vecna's presence, his pain, almost like it's his own.
Which leads us straight into the most painful cliffhanger, Max Mayfield.
Oh, Max. Yeah.
11 managed to save her body, right? Stopped her bones from fully snapping. But she couldn't reach Max's mind, her consciousness, and that failure is going to be a massive driver for 11's own journey in season 5.
Max is just trapped in this awful coma. It's described as a liminal state, a medical impossibility. She's not just physically broken. Her mind is somewhere else, maybe imprisoned in the Upside Down, maybe damaged in a way doctors just can't understand. It feels supernatural.
And the set reports confirm Sadie Sink, the actress, is still hospitalized midway through season 5 filming. So her being physically out of action for that long means there has to be a significant narrative reason, a big payoff. The question isn't just if she wakes up, but how. And maybe what knowledge she's gathered while trapped in that dark place, which naturally fuels a lot of compelling fan theories.
Oh, yeah, the theories are intense. Is her mind actually active, just not reachable? Is she somehow experiencing the Upside Down from inside Vecna's mind? Could she be gathering intel without him knowing?
Or the darker possibility.
Yeah, is she basically a psychic hostage that Vecna is? Grooming, waiting to corrupt her and turn her against 11 at the worst possible moment.
Keeping her sidelined but potentially conscious serves a huge purpose beyond just tragedy. Her body might be stuck, but her mind could be the most crucial battleground in this whole war.
But maybe the most immediate shocking change when season 5 opens is what's happened to Hawkins itself. Physically.
Right. Vecna actually achieved his real goal. He needed those 4 deaths to open 4 gates at the kill sites. And that pattern, that geometry, it converged. It ripped open one huge catastrophic rift. The barrier between our world and the Upside Down, it's essentially gone. The Upside Down is actively bleeding into Hawkins.
So Hawkins is now confirmed as this hybrid world. The guide paints this really grim picture, constant upside-down ash falling, like this silent, snowy reminder of the decay. These otherworldly vines are physically creeping through people's yards, literally choking out normal life.
Yeah.
It's not just a small town with a secret problem anymore. It's ground zero.
And on top of that, the whole incident is now classified as a national security emergency. So Hawkins is under strict military occupation. But these government forces, they're not really there to help the residents find their lost cats. They're hunting 11. They're trying to contain what they see as either a massive biohazard or, maybe worse, a potential weapon. And this militarized reality is key. Basic survival now completely overshadows being a teenager.
That's a huge shift. The kids can't just ride their bikes around anymore. They're navigating a war zone, basically, where every move might be watched, so they have to grow up fast. They're essentially soldiers now, in hostile territory, fighting Vecna and dodging their own government.
And that shift to being a soldier, it feels perfectly embodied by the character who's finally stepping into the main spotlight.
Will Byers.
Yeah.
Let's pivot to that because it seems like the defining change for this final season.
Yeah, this feels like the biggest structural shift for season 5. Will Byers is right back at the center. It brings the whole story full circle, intentionally echoing the inciting incident from season 1. The official synopsis even mentions the anniversary of his disappearance is coming up, bringing this heavy, familiar dread that only Will truly gets.
And the Duffers have been very direct about this. They told our sources that Will really takes center stage again in season 5. They talked about an emotional arc for him that ties the whole series together. So this isn't just giving him more screen time. He's the linchpin for the final conflict.
And that final conflict, that final battle, it's against a darkness more powerful and more deadly than anything they've faced before. So the stakes are higher than just beating a monster. It's about fighting this, existential corruption. And the really huge, game-changing reveal came from that Stranger Things Day footage they released the first 5 minutes of the season premiere. It shows young Will being hunted in the Upside Down, right? And Vecna finally catches him. And he whispers something absolutely chilling, something that completely reframes their whole history. At long last, we can begin. You and I, we are going to do such beautiful things together, William.
Wow. Okay, that one scene just detonates everything we assumed about season 1, doesn't it?
Completely.
It means Will wasn't just randomly snatched by a demogorgon that stumbled through a gate. He was targeted. He was specifically chosen, hunted down, and marked by Henry Creel, by Vecna from the very beginning.
It finally gives us the answer to that lingering question, why Will? His suffering wasn't an accident. It was always part of Vecna's long game, stretching all the way back to November 1983. What looked like a random tragic event was actually the opening move in this years-long plan for dimensional conquest.
So if he was chosen deliberately, we have to ask, why him? Our analysis points towards Will's specific nature, that deep emotional sensitivity, his artistic side. Maybe that openness, that empathy, made him uniquely valuable to Vecna.
Right.
Either as the perfect psychic receiver, or maybe, conversely, the only one actually capable of understanding the root of Vecna's rage and pain.
Which sets up this incredibly intense duality for Will in the final season, that unique, unwilling connection he has. It makes him the only one who could potentially save everyone, maybe by sensing Vecna's weakness. Or, and this is the tragic possibility, he could become the perfect vessel for Vecna's final assault. He could literally become the new gatekeeper, the human anchor for the Upside Down. That tension, is he the hero or the ultimate victim? That feels like the absolute core of the season.
And while Will's at the center, the rest of the core group is dealing with the apocalypse alongside their own heavy emotional baggage.
Yeah.
You've got Joyce and Hopper, whose partnership is now this really solid, almost familial thing forged in, Russian prisons and shared trauma. They're the anchors now.
Meanwhile, Eleven's facing this unprecedented two-front war. She's got Vecna gunning for her, wanting revenge or control, and she's got these government hunters trying to capture and weaponize her. It's a psychological and physical battle on both sides.
And the older teens, Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, Jonadek, they're still untangling their complicated relationships amidst, the end of the world. Steve Harrington's whole journey, from jerky jock to basically the group's protector dad.
Yeah, the babysitter.
Exactly. That arc gets tested. He's trying to shield the younger kids while dealing with his own feelings for Nancy and that sort of co-parenting dynamic he has with Dustin. It sounds like that's all coming to a head.
But it's not just internal drama and Vecna. There's a powerful new external threat representing those government forces, Dr. K, played by the legendary Linda Hamilton.
Now that is casting news that makes you sit up straight.
Right.
And it signals a big shift from previous authority figures. We had Brenner, who was cold, scientific, detached. Then Owens, who was more conflicted, maybe a bit ineffective, bureaucratic. But Dr. K is described as hyper-intelligent and intimidating. And crucially, She's someone who can get into a fight and shoot a gun.
Yeah, casting Linda Hamilton is no accident. It's brilliant, really. Her decades playing Sarah Connor in Terminator just give Dr. K this instant credibility as a physical threat. She's not just a scientist. She feels like a hardened, dangerous operative.
Which ramps up the danger for Eleven massively. She's not just dealing with lab coats and bureaucracy now. She's up against someone highly trained, probably cynical, who sees her powers purely as a military asset, not as belonging to a traumatized young woman.
Exactly. It forces the whole group into this desperate survival mode against their own government.
Meanwhile, to kind of balance out all that darkness and trauma, they're introducing a new child character, Nell Fisher. Our sources say she's specifically meant to recapture some of the spirit of the first season, especially now that the original kids are young adults.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a smart move narratively. Nell Fisher can embody that innocence, that sense of wonder Hawkins had before all the horror. It provides a stark contrast to the jadedness and trauma the main group carries now. She's a reminder of what they're actually fighting to protect the chance for a normal childhood.
But to protect that future, they have to finally confront the origin of the evil itself. Which brings us to the biggest, most fundamental mystery of the whole show.
Okay, so if Season 5 is really going to deliver that satisfying ending, it has to finally tell us what the Upside Down actually is. Is it just some parallel dimension that Vecna stumbled upon and colonized?
Right.
Or is it something he actively created, like a weapon, specifically for conquest? That distinction changes everything about how you defeat it.
And our Urban Herald sources confirm the show's internal mythology is rooted in this historical reference point, the supposed 1943 U.S. Navy experiment, the Philadelphia experiment. In the show's lore, that experiment accidentally ripped open a portal to what they called Dimension X, this parallel reality that's constantly decaying.
Let's dig into that lore a bit more because it sounds foundational. The sources say the experiment was a disaster. Crew members vanished, some came back changed, driven mad, holding forbidden knowledge. And critically, one survivor of that original 1943 event went on to father Dr. Martin Brenner. That generational link feels really important.
It absolutely is. It connects Brenner's later obsession directly back to his own family history. It helps explain why he built Hawkins' lab. He wasn't just randomly chasing psychic powers. He was specifically trying to re-access the dimension his father encountered, trying to maybe validate his father's experience or complete that terrifying legacy.
Okay, so connect that historical thread to Henry Creel, to number one. Young Henry, fueled by his powers and his, well, hatred for humanity, finds some old, abandoned scientific gear in a cave near Hawkins' lab's early sites. And using it accidentally transports him into Dimension X.
Right. But Henry's experience there was completely different from the sailors or anyone else. They died or went insane. Henry, he not only survived the dimension's toxic nature, but he found this amorphous cloud of particles, like the raw, shapeless stuff of that reality.
Wow.
And he used his incredibly strong psychic abilities not just to perceive this chaos, but to actively shape it, to mold it.
So he didn't just find the mind flare floating around in Dimension X, he made it.
Exactly. That seems to be the key insight from Season 4 and probably the key to the finale. He imposed his will, his consciousness onto the raw, primordial chaos of Dimension X and basically sculpted the Mind Flayer into existence. He forged this terrifying weapon out of the fabric of another reality.
That's huge. Creation, not discovery.
And then later, when 11 blasted him back into Dimension X during their fight at the lab, the toxic environment there, combined with the trauma of that violent banishment, physically warped his body into Vecna. Burned, twisted, but radiating even more psychic power. His body was ruined, but his consciousness seemingly merged with the entity he'd created.
Okay, so the central mystery for Season 5 still boils down to this. Is the Upside Down just an unfortunate parallel dimension that Henry took over? Or is it more accurate to call it a complete construct, something Henry literally built from his own trauma and rage, a dimension shaped entirely by his will?
And the Duffers have promised the finale will finally give us the truth about the Upside Down's nature, which seems to lead to two main possibilities, according to our analysis. One theory is that the Upside Down is actually Earth's future. Yeah, like a ruined, corrupted timeline where Vecna already won, which would explain why it looks like Hawkins, but decayed and stuck in 1983.
If it's the future, the threat is sort of external, existential. But the other theory, which maybe feels more terrifying given the Mind Flayer creation story, is that the Upside Down is Henry, that it's purely a psychic manifestation, a physical dimension born from his hatred and pain.
Right. And if that's true, then defeating Vecna isn't just about closing a gate. It's potentially about destroying an entire reality that's built from his mind, which makes the final battle way more complex than just punching a monster. It becomes about shattering a mindscape.
Which ties back perfectly to Will's unique psychic connection and vulnerability.
Exactly. And there's still that lingering question about the Mind Flayer's current status. Early seasons definitely made it feel like its own thing, this independent, almost Lovecraftian entity.
Yeah.
Season 4 revealed Henry created it from those particles. But the question now is, have Vecna and the Mind Flayer completely merged into one single consciousness? A true hive mind, controlling everything, the Demogorgons, the Demobats, all of it.
That distinction feels critical for the final fight.
Yeah.
If they're separate, the gang has to somehow fight two major threats, maybe in two different realms.
But if they've totally merged, then taking out Vecna's psychic core should theoretically destroy everything connected to the Upside Down at once. That would be the definitive victory you need for a final season.
Okay, so the answer to that question probably determines the final strategy. We've got the lore, the threat level, the stakes. Now let's really zero in on those three characters who seem most entangled in these final mysteries. Will, Max, and Eleven.
Yeah, the analysis really emphasizes the unique, almost supernatural links between Will, Max, and Eleven. It suggests their specific vulnerabilities, their psychic connections. They might not actually be weaknesses in the end. They might be the keys to the whole solution.
Let's go back to Will then, marked back in '83. If Vecna specifically chose him, what exactly did he leave behind inside Will during that first abduction? The most popular theory is still that he contains some kind of psychic residue, maybe a piece of the Mind Flayer itself, acting like a living tracker Vecna can always tap into.
But our analysis also considers the flip side. Maybe Will's sensitivity, his deep understanding of pain and being an outsider, makes him the only one truly capable of figuring out Vecna's real weakness. Because Vecna's power seems rooted in very human trauma and rage. So the hopeful theory, the one we're all kind of rooting for, is that Will's unparalleled connection, his greatest vulnerability, becomes the world's greatest weapon against Vecna.
But we can't ignore the darker possibility, which is just so narratively potent because of the tragic symmetry. Since Will was the start of Vecna's whole 4-year plan, could he become the final sacrifice needed? Could sealing the rift for good require sacrificing the person who unknowingly enabled it all? That kind of tragic choice would definitely set a somber, maybe fitting tone for the finale.
And that tragic potential links right over to Max. Why did Vecna leave her mind intact? He clearly got his kill count for the gate. He broke her body, but stopped short of that final psychic blow, leaving her in this state.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense if he just wanted her dead.
Exactly. So is her mind a hostage meant to manipulate Eleven later? Or is she a dormant weapon he plans to corrupt and unleash? Max is basically this ticking psychic bomb.
The theories around her are really interesting. Some suggest she might only wake up through some kind of psychic team-up. Like, maybe it takes Eleven's raw power, combined with Will's unique upside-down connection. Plus, Max's own proven ability to fight Vecna using her traumatic memories, like she did in Season 4, a psychic triumvirate.
That's compelling. Others think she's been aware the whole time, just trapped inside Vecna's mindscape, unintentionally gathering intelligence, learning his weaknesses, his patterns from the inside.
So her time on the sidelines isn't passive. It's strategic, setting her up for a huge comeback.
It seems likely. It serves a deep narrative purpose, preparing her for one massive final contribution.
Okay, now for the question everyone asks, the morbid guessing game. Who actually dies? For good. Stranger Things usually protects the core kids, right?
Yeah.
Sacrificing beloved side characters like Eddie Munson instead.
True, but the stakes now are literally apocalyptic. That seems to demand a higher price, more significant losses.
So the speculation naturally falls on characters whose deaths would hit the hardest emotionally, but maybe wouldn't completely break the group's ability to function. People like Steve Harrington, Dustin Henderson, maybe Hopper.
Yeah. Steve's journey from jerk to protector makes his potential sacrifice feel like the ultimate redemption arc payoff. Dustin, losing his relentless optimism would be absolutely crushing. And Hopper, finally finding his way back to Joyce and Eleven, losing that hard-won happiness would be devastating.
And the sources bring up this idea of narrative honesty. Is the ending going to be brutally honest, with multiple main characters making permanent sacrifices? Or will the Duffers lean into fake-out deaths, characters seeming to die heroically, only to pop back up in the final moments?
Given the emotional weight they've built up and how serious the threat is, Genuine permanent loss feels more likely if they want the ending to really land with impact.
And that commitment to the emotional journey, it feels tied to this overwhelming sense of finality. The Duffers have been adamant. Season 5 is it, the end. No immediate spin-offs with the main cast, no reunion specials down the line. They're choosing a definitive conclusion over trying to milk the franchise.
Which gives this whole season incredibly high, irreversible stakes. And you see it reflected in how the cast talks about it. Noah Schnapp said the scripts felt like they were narrating the conclusion of our real lives because the show defined his entire adolescence.
Wow.
And David Harbour pointed out how the scripts resolve things set up way back in season 1, offering real long-term closure.
That detail about Noah Schnapp crying uncontrollably during his final scenes with Winona Ryder, that hits hard. It shows this isn't just acting, it's genuine grief about saying goodbye to these relationships, these shared experiences that shaped their youth. And we as viewers are kind of mourning with them.
Definitely. They've been constant since 2016, right? Watching Eleven learn trust, Mike and Will navigating that complex friendship, Steve's surprising growth, Joyce's sheer grit, Hopper choosing life again.
We're saying goodbye to fictional friends who've been through hell, and the finality of that. It makes that big theatrical release feel right. It almost demands that collective process of letting go.
So between November 26th and December 31st, 2025, we finally get the answers. And hopefully, yeah, a closure that feels earned after nearly a decade of investment.
Okay, before we wrap up this Urban Herald deep dive, let's give everyone listening some practical homework. If you don't have time for a full series rewatch, based on everything we've discussed, what are the absolute must-watch episodes to get the most out of the finale? #takeoutro.
All right, so we've covered the mission, laid out that unique, staggered release schedule, including the big theatrical finale. We've really highlighted Will Byers' central role, introduced the new threat in Dr. K, and set the stage for finally understanding what the Upside Down truly is, a place or a state of mind.
So for that essential rewatch list, based on what the guide confirms is critical for Season 5, we strongly recommend 4 key areas. First, definitely go back to Season 1, Episode 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. You need that emotional starting point, the 1983 vibe, the original fear and innocence the Duffers are clearly referencing.
Second, Season 4, Episode 4, Dear Billy. Absolutely vital for understanding Max's trauma, how Vecna's curse works, and her escape using music. That's crucial context for her coma and how she might fight back psychically.
Third, and honestly, you probably can't skip this one if you want to grasp the finale's deep lore. Season 4, Episode 7, The Massacre at Hawkins' Lab. This gives you Henry Creel's full origin story, how he became Vecna, and the massive reveal about him creating the Mind Flayer. You'll miss a lot in Season 5 without that context.
Then finally, just rewatch the direct setup. Season 4, Episodes 8 and 9, the finale episodes, they show the rifts opening, Hawkins transforming Max's fate. They lead directly into the tactical situation and the group's mindset at the start of Season 5 in fall '87.
Yeah, it's really about getting back into the group's headspace after that perceived failure in Season 4. That grief, that sense of defeat. That's the emotional weight they're carrying into this final massive battle against something that knows exactly how to hurt them.
Which brings us to that final provocative thought our analysis leaves us wrestling with. Vecna needed Will's disappearance back in '83 to kickstart his entire multi-year, multi-dimensional scheme. The final battle is all about closing the rift, and that rift seems anchored by Will's unique connection.
So you have to ask that tough question the sources pose. The show ends by making us face whether defeating it requires sacrifices we're not prepared to accept. If Will was the unwilling catalyst for this whole nightmare, does achieving the right side up demand sacrificing the original source? Does Will Byers have to be sacrificed to close the door for good?
The final chapter is coming. The gates are wide open. We'll find out between that Thanksgiving drop and the New Year's Eve finale.
Thank you for joining us for this essential Urban Herald deep dive. We will definitely catch you on the other side.